Welcome to this episode of Lead the Machine podcast, where today's leaders and tomorrow's talk about the human side of AI at work. I'm your host, Kirsten Marr, and today's guest is Dakota Von Koontz, someone who is bringing clarity, calm, and real world, that was hard to say, support to leaders navigating broken systems. And AI is central to his work. Dakota wears a lot of hats, but they all point in the same direction, helping high performing leaders stop over functioning and start leading from a place of clarity. He's the founder of DVK Coaching, where he works with folks who are doing more than their share and still feeling behind, and helps them shift out of survival mode into a more sustainable, grounded way of leading. He's also the director of Housing Heroes Hub, a national community supporting housing leaders with practical tools, real time support, and honest conversations about the reality of running public and affordable housing programs. Dakota's seen firsthand how exhausting and overwhelming this work can be, and how isolating it is when you're the one everyone relies on. He's bringing the power of AI to these professionals to help them wrangle their workload and spend more time where they are most needed. On top of that, if it wasn't enough, he's the director of Canzo Software, director of marketing at Canzo Software, which builds modern systems to support public and affordable housing organizations. So, what stands out to me is Dakota's clarity on the emotional labor leaders are carrying, especially in sectors like housing, where the mission is so important, but the systems are so hard. You'll hear him talk about burnout, leading through chaos, and how Gen AI can be a powerful tool when we're intentional. This is a thoughtful conversation about how to lead when the work feels relentless and why clarity is the path forward. So let's dive in. Dakota, welcome to Lead the Machine.
How fun. What an intro. Thank you so much. I
You're
love
welcome.
it.
It's great to have you. So, if I have taken our conversations in the right way, you see AI as being a game changer for people doing good work who feel just overwhelmed by the scope of what they're tasked with on a daily basis. And so you've coached over 1,000 people on how to use AI, but you're not from the typical tech world. How did you find your way into AI coaching and marketing from such a non-traditional background?
Um, well, you said all the things that I'm doing right now. So I have a lot of hats. And it really just, I think, started out of necessity. I have, and we can get into this later or at any point, but I have no background in marketing. I have no background in tech. I don't have a college degree. We could go down the list of what I don't have. And it really just came down to like I needed to have I've invested roughly 1,600 hours into ChatGPT, and so I needed to figure out a way how to do all the things that I was doing, utilize it, and then like get really good at it. And I think at every presentation that I've led these bad boys, it's been anywhere from like, I don't know, 10 people, 5 people, whatever, to like 130 people, like at conferences and trade shows. And I always start off in a similar way. First off, I create why they should be listening to me, like 1,600 hours. I've led all these people, whatever. I've done things where I created content with, again, no background in any of this that like ended up not only newsworthy, but like our CEO ended up on the news and was interviewed, and I was doing press releases when I had no business doing any of that.
Today's AI tools make it more accessible really for everybody.
One, this is funny to do at the beginning of a podcast, but I'm probably dyslexic. I'm probably ADD. I got terrible grades in school, just horrible. And like for me, I had to figure out a way to like and I don't know if I should be saying this, but I'll say it anyway, like cheat in high school. I had to figure out how to cheat. I had to figure out how to roll in people and like having to like get things done. And so as a result of that, I got really clever of like, let's say, thinking outside of the box. Anybody can do this. So I train that often. It's like, guys, listen, this is who I am. So if no matter where you're at, no matter if you've never even heard of AI or you're confused or you're concerned or you're this or you're that, I promise you, you're going to be able to get good at this. And it's going to be accessible to you, your teams, and it'll transform your organization.
We all think AI is the only thing everyone talks about at all, everywhere, and there's some truth to that.
Uh-huh.
But that doesn't mean that everyone has experience working with it. And I think you often start out like you're working with a lot of people who are like, well, so what really is it?
100%.
and a phrase when you and I chatted that I liked, you said, they feel as dumb as a box of rocks. Like I feel, or someone said that to you. Um, how do you start with people like you're dealing with, a group of people who can really benefit, but man, they're at ground zero. So what's your approach to like meeting them where they are?
Totally, totally. And that what I said right there, that was a direct quote where somebody came up to me and I led a session at a trade show. It was like a 2 hour session. And then someone came up to me afterwards and I was like, just so you know, and that was the phrase, I'm as dumb as a box of rocks. And I spent like an hour, 2 hours working on AI last night. And I built this form for my organization and I did this and I did that. And like, I'm just so excited about it. And honestly, my goal was just really to take the fear away from it. Like,
Mm.
uh, because I don't have a background in a lot of the stuff, even, and then now I am the director of this and I'm director of that, I can really relate to having oh, what is it, imposter syndrome and like
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
like I'm not actually capable. Like the idea that I'm working for a software company, okay, that was never possible growing up. I perceived myself growing up as like not that intelligent, not that capable, but I knew there was something there that I had to like prove and figure out. So like when I got hired at a software company, I was like, my grandparents would be blown away. They'd have no, they like, oh my God, look at me. And so, anyway, long story short, now the director of marketing, and then now working with individuals who, I guess the demographic, they're not necessarily technologists often. Sometimes they are. I don't want to overgeneralize it, but sometimes it's a little bit of concern of like, oh, I'm maybe past the point of being able to understand that really well. I promise you, no matter where you're at, no matter how old, no matter how young, if there's any concerns that you have as far as capability, if I can do it, you can absolutely do it. And then not only that, but teach others and then like be an advocate for it and things like that.
From your perspective, what's the most cool or surprising thing you've seen from someone in your workshops who thought they weren't smart enough or didn't really know how to do it that actually created like tangible benefit in or after, some of the sessions you've led?
Um, there was one session where in 20 minutes I was working with this group and we were able to create oh, what is it called? It's a rental repositioning. We were able to reposition. So basically, in public and affordable housing, they have programs that they run. And we repositioned and created a plan to reposition the organization in 20 minutes. And somebody came up to me afterwards and they were like, just so you know, I just finished doing that. And that was the equivalent of $30,000. And it was a year's worth of working with a contractor. And it was grueling work. And in 20 minutes, you created with I don't know, 125 people, this, and then I sent it to everybody and I tailored it to that housing authority and the person working for it, and they were the executive director, and then we were pulling up the board members and then like under so that they understand. And it just, was fun and easy and it wasn't a big deal, but I'd say
It
that was
is
the
a
biggest
big
success.
deal. That's a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
deal.
Okay,
That's
okay,
a
I got it,
big
I got it, I got
deal.
it. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a
yeah,
big
yeah.
deal. You kind of, it blows your hair back, or it should. And maybe for some of us using it, we're getting a little too used to it, but that should blow your hair back, like that's possible. And given all your work with professionals in housing
Uh-huh.
authorities really across the country, let's get a little bit more into their pain that they have. What do most people not understand about the pressures that these teams face day to day?
Amazing. I love to answer that, and I'm just still thinking about blow my hair back. And if I had hair, I would do that. I would have say that
You
phrase
still
every
have
day.
hair. You got hair.
I have no, I'm not balding. I just mean if I had, and then I go like this, I want a wig or something. So anyway, let me answer the question. Uh, um, so what people don't understand is like I'm going to start at the high level of like the whole thing. Like people often don't really know what public and affordable housing is. Like they have an idea, but they don't really understand. So basically, the government issues out funds every year. They have a specific bucket for individuals that are in low income, whatever that is. Okay. These buckets are labeled programs. So there's a bunch of different buckets and they're programs. Like one is specifically for veterans, one specifically for there's a program called public housing. There's another one called Section 8, or where they use vouchers and they include landlords and like things like that, whatever. But there's a certain amount of funds, and then they diversify between these programs. And then there's like, oh, anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 public and affordable housing authorities in the country, at least in this area. There's also tribal housing, which we support, and then there's basically homeless entities and things like that. That's a different bucket. But public and affordable housing, there's these programs, and then there's these housing authorities. And then if somebody fits the qualifications for not only the housing authority of like meeting their standards, but they fit the program, then they will potentially be able to be housed for a lower amount. It could be a lot, it could be significant, it could be less significant. Okay. So if you think about the government, they've never really retracted any of the rules that they've given for the most part. There's been however many years where there's all these rules, and this one right here contradicts this one right here,
Because they
and
because
then this
they just layer it on. They just
they just
add.
layered on.
They don't
They're just
subtract.
are always adding. Okay. So then if you look at that, it's like writing a software for something like that is almost impossible. Most of the software in the industry is so ancient because it's at least 30 to 40 years old because like there's so many outliers. There's so many things that like because of this rule and this rule now this, it's preposterous. Okay. So as a result of that, most of the software that's in the industry is just old. It's outdated. So why is there so much paper? Why is there so much things that are like you look at like a phone and how modern it is, and then you walk into a system where they're still using like fax machines, they're still doing like things that are just so not modern. It's a
Mhm.
result of like the rules and regulations and being able to support that. And then the organization is based on that, and then they've created SOPs on that. So, as a result of all that, being able to not only like house people and there's like the compliance, there's the structure, there's the running and like an organization, and then on the other side there's the emotional side of it. There's like managing the tenants, managing the employees. These individuals, not all the time, but sometimes or often, they're like low, they're not doing the best. Like they're just trying to make it. They're trying to survive. So being able to manage those individuals and like manage those relationships while having that takes a special person. Then on the other side, there's all this compliance and the reporting, and like somebody comes in and they're, let's say, they're making certain amount of income and then they get a new job and there's like rent calculations, there's rent deductions, there's all this stuff to keep in mind. So balancing the compliance, the operations, and then the emotional side and the emotional weight of dealing with these people and manage it all, it takes a special person.
Yeah, it does. And the other thing you're part of a government system, so there's also the securing the resources
Yeah.
and securing the public support, um, the legislature support.
hmm
I mean, so while you have all of this stuff and which sounds pretty fairly chaotic, to be honest, and
hmm
very, to your point, outdated, um, they also have a job of making sure that the people who will grant them funds want to keep granting them funds. So there's also a political part of the job, the advocacy part.
hmm
So talk maybe just a little bit about the pressure of that.
Well, one of my favorite phrases that I was actually with this individual yesterday. Her name is Sharon Carlson. She was the NCRC president. She was this, that, and the other thing. And
what is NCRC?
okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's so many acronyms. The whole country is broken down into eight separate regions. So
Hmm.
there's one region that is like one of the bigger regions, and it's Central Regional Council. I think
Okay.
that's what it is. So she was a president at like this region, and she's like made a big difference in like housing. She's been in the game for 40 years, and she has this phrase where she says, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. She's really, really good at being able to make her voice known and her presence known. And like she's a part of every board that you can think of in her community. And every time that she goes to these boards, she makes it clear of this is why we're here. This is what's important about what we do. This is the difference that we make, and this is why we care about you. And it's just always enrolling not only everybody around her, but then enrolling her team and then enrolling the tenants on what is important. Because if you don't do that, if you don't advocate for yourself, then eventually you might lose this, you might lose that. And I mean, if you look at the industry in general, it's predominantly a lot of people that are close to retirement right now, public and affordable housing. Not only on the HUD side, where there's the funds and the compliance, all that stuff, but then also the people that are actually running the industry. She is one of those individuals. She's been in the game for 40 years. I mean, she deserves a retirement. But as a result of that, there is a there's a gap in knowledge. There's a gap in like what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing, and things like that with older technology.
And
So
so
how
she she knows how to be, at the table, not on the menu. And a lot of industries are facing this aging workforce where most of the institutional knowledge is leaving and where,
100%.
tech can actually be a real help here,
Hmm.
capture what they know. But just to put a bookend on the pressures.
Yeah.
So the pressures are really hard system, rules on top of rules, no one thinks to remove them. It's impossible for software to keep up and coding to keep up with all the contradictions and all the rules. Manual workarounds are the name of the game. You are dealing with tenants, you're dealing with overwhelm, you're dealing with making sure that you continue to get the funding, and then you have the financial compliance reporting. You have to be able to connect with people in their situation.
Hmm.
I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you connect. So previously, I know you ran a pawn shop, and we kind of talked about how that maybe helps you connect with what's going on in affordable housing, which people may say, "How is that?" But talk about, how it is that you understand or can relate to where people are coming from.
Amazing. And I will absolutely do that in 1 second. One other thing that I want to add to just put a bow on it of like
Yeah.
other things that people have to keep an eye on is when there is new when there's a new president, when there's new like thing, when there's change in that aspect, there is a lot of like overarching concerns of what will be changed in the industry. So
Mhm.
there's just been an overhaul of like things that people have to keep track of. And I won't bore you with the acronyms, but there was like at one point, usually there was like maybe one change every couple of years that like people had to like incorporate in their housing and like make sure that they're compliant. Over the last couple of years, there's been like on the table at least like five. And so there's like concern of like, oh no, I can't lose my funding. I want to make sure that I don't like mess things up. What do I need to know? And then there's shutdowns that are the longest they've ever been. When that's happening, they actually can't receive funding during that time because they get funded every month. So how can I support these people? How do I take care of the landlords? Like there's just a lot of fear and uncertainty right now about like what is next. How do I prepare? How do I prepare for something that I actually don't know what it's going to look like? And so, anyway, I just wanted to put a bow on
Well,
that.
and then just to support what you're saying, so the housing professional is already thinking about those things.
Uh,
I can only imagine the call volume from their tenants, because this is their
uh,
shelter. This is
totally.
I mean, the amount of stress if you are a tenant about whether or not you're going to have a roof over your head for you and your family. So then that flood comes into the very people that you're serving. So
And
let's talk about how you are able to emotionally, connect based on your own experiences.
beautiful. Um, when I was 20, I lived in low income. And it's actually,
Oh,
I became one of my best friends in the world. He was the best man of
I,
my, he actually works for the software company as well, which is just so fun. He brought that up recently. And I was like, I forgot I was that. That was going on. Yeah. And then also like my grandparents, at least on my mom's side, very Hispanic side, both of them were illiterate, and then so that they were supported by the state in a lot of ways, and then their children, not including my mom, but like a lot of the children, 6 kids. A lot of those individuals ended up being supported by the state as well, and like lived in a public and affordable housing, which I don't really ever think about until sometimes I'm in a podcast and I'm like, oh, yeah, that actually is relevant to what we're talking about. Now, I'm not saying that people that are in low income come from like those kind of backgrounds and things like that, but sometimes they do. And so that kind of speaks to me. Then we'll go to pawn shop. My mom ran a pawn shop. She was in the game for like 38 years. She ran her own one, and I ran her pawn shop for 8 years. Now, a lot of people kind of have a misconception about what a pawn shop is. A lot of people think that it's like, oh, I go and I sell things. People sell things to me and then I sell them, or when I ran it at least. And the misconception is actually the way that you can judge if a pawn shop is working is the amount of loans that they have out, the collateral-based loans. So it's basically like a bank for merchandise. So I was housing these individuals' TVs, Rolexes, whatever it is, jewelry across the board. And we had like a 97.5 pickup rate, which is really crazy in the industry, meaning 97.5 of the people that showed up actually picked their stuff up. Most of them is like 40%. And the reason I think that number is so high is just because we were really good at reading people and building connections and things like that. But
but
I
what they
bring,
were doing
uh
was instead of trying to go somewhere to get an advance on a paycheck, they would bring their item to essentially get money as an advance to pay bills, and then they would come back when they got their paycheck and pick it
100%.
back up. That's what was happening?
One, if you think
Yeah.
like often there's a the way that people think about it is like, I don't know, skeezy people go there. But like we worked with incredible people that only got paid once a month. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, if you work for the state, often you only get paid once a month. So you got to budget everything out and make sure your kids are taken care of and food and all that jazz. And then on the 23rd, I don't know, maybe you ran out of money. And so then you have to come in, you give us whatever you give us, we'll take a loan and then you bring back 10% interest. So $100, you get 110, you bring up 110 and then you get your items back. So most of the people we served were people that were on a regular basis that got paid once a month, that were in the military, that were let's see, I
Wait,
don't
wait,
know,
wait. So
artists.
these people brought you the same items or whatever every single month they did this.
Yeah. Or they
Wow.
picked or they kept it in for a while until they were ready. Like again, if you think about like an artist, like they get paid when the job's done. Sometimes it might
Mhm.
take them months, or like if you're in construction, you don't get paid till the end. So like being able to pay for your staff and things like that. So I say all that because being able to manage relationships and understand a lot of the people that I worked with were in public and affordable housing, and they were doing the best they can to do the best they can. And I worked with these individuals. I built relationships. I love them. We considered it like family. Now, family gets a little squirrely when you're incorporating business, but when I speak with these individuals that are running these housing authorities, I can relate to the idea of these people are their family. They love them. They care about them, but you also have to keep a distance and run the organization and make sure you're taking care of your own and you're taking care of your staff so that you can continue to house, you can continue to take others. Like when I'm running a family business, somebody brings me a wrench and they need diaper money. It's like, I can't do anything. And it was emotional at times, and being able to like kind of become numb to the situation so that I could support more. I see that this often happens in public and affordable housing, at least the people that are there for a long time. If you've been in the game for 30 years, there's no way that you can let the heartstrings pull on you so much, because there's so much at stake, and there's so much. You need to be an expert at reading rules and lawyer language. You need to be an expert at compliance. You need to be an expert at running a business. And then there's the emotional side, and that's the all that other stuff besides the emotions was where AI can really help.
And the reason that I thought that this part of the conversation, and I didn't know about your own personal experience, so I knew about the pawn shop, but I didn't know. So thank you for sharing. One of the things we talk about in any kind of technology, AI included,
Mm,
is don't chase the shiny object. Um, know your business, know the business problem that you're trying to solve, and then
mhm,
figure out how technology can help. Don't just
sure.
say there's this cool new technology, we should use it. And so I think that you understanding the different constituents, the different stakeholders
Mhm,
from a personal experience is
mhm,
why you're able to play in this space. And then you're looking at a tool like AI and you're saying, because I understand the landscape and um, what people are really going through, and I can
mhm,
define the problem,
mhm.
I can look at a technology like AI and I can see where it can be applied. In terms of basic efficiency, I'm assuming AI is helping with reading all the rules, looking at the different, areas where they're conflicting only because they've layered on,
Mhm,
document processing,
mhm.
compliance reporting, like the blocking and tackling, I assume is one key area where AI can give some real relief to these leaders who are trying to do so much.
100%. Yeah. Like and just speaking to what you're saying, like, forms that like they not only do they have to have, but then the tenants need to fill out. Like recently, one of my brilliant colleagues, assisted a housing authority and then now is replicable across the board with other housing authorities on like intake forms, for people to be on a waiting list. So somebody wants to apply to work or to be, supported by the housing authority. There's a documents that you have to fill out that are just like you need to have those. And they can be up to like 50 plus pages long of like signature, writing, all that jazz. Either you get mailed it or you come into there and then they have to print it out themselves and then give it to this individual. Okay. Then they take it, then they fill it out. I mean, I can speak for myself. I have terrible handwriting, whatever. It is what it is. But like these individuals, you have to, they're gonna do what they need to do. Now, that's applying for one housing authority. Say you are in desperate need, so you apply for a bunch of housing authorities that are in your area, or maybe that this executive director manages. Sometimes they manage, I don't know, 12, 14 housing authorities because they're just incredible women and men in this industry. But anyway, the more that you want to do, that you have to fill out those documents again and again and again and again. Then you bring it to the housing authority. They have to perceive what that person wrote, then input it into their software or like write it down, do whatever they got to do, and then let them know, like say they messed up one, then you got to go back and forth and back and forth. So my colleague took those documentations, used AI to write the code to then put into forms of some sort, and then now the individual only has to do it once, and in theory the executive director doesn't even need to be involved in the situation. Like it literally can go from tenant to potentially software, or at least have it clean and written out in a sheet that they can just copy and paste into their software. And like, I mean, that could save up to a week plus of time of back and forth and reading, and then say they're
And
doing a
open
bunch.
them up to do the higher level work that only they can do.
I mean, like, I've worked with executive directors that have had 4 generations in a housing authority. And starting programs, doing what they can to help the younger people that are at that housing authority so that they don't have to live in a situation like that. And like the awards that they can get and go into college and like the certificates, it's so beautiful. I remember speaking with one executive director at one point, and she was like, you know what I love? I work late almost every night because when I leave and I turn off all the lights, I get in my car and I look out and I see the new computer room that we created for these individuals. It's almost always on, and I can see people in there trying to better themselves. And that wasn't possible before me like, creating that. So, like, these are caring individuals that often got into housing because they wanted to make a difference. They wanted a part-time job to take care of their families. And so it went from the idea of working 15, 20, 30 hours to 70 hours because there's so much to do
So much to
and
do.
there's not enough time. And how do I balance it all? So,
And arcane systems in which to do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So how do you get
100%.
balance with it? That's very hard. So AI can really help bring balance to people who are trying to do good. Um, we talked earlier about the number of stakeholders that these leaders in housing really have to accommodate, or they won't be able to provide the services that they're so passionate about providing. I can only imagine just how stressful that is. Every time political winds shift, they got to figure it out. Um, that only leads itself to many difficult conversations,
Hmm.
many different pitches to people who are going to fund your housing authority, be it government officials or others, legislatures, etc. Um, you've also thought about how AI can help prepare leaders for these emotional conversations with funders, with boards, with mayors, with other stakeholders, with tenants. How do you help people use AI to help them with that part of it?
Totally. Well, I'm a personal and professional coach, and I work with leaders across the board. And so I'm always thinking about that and navigating difficult conversations. I lead those kind of conversations, not including AI, just only like on those at conferences and trade shows. It's what I love, it's why I exist. So there's that. But then AI, when I'm leading these presentations with individuals, um, you can literally speak to ChatGPT and you can have it speak back to you. And I train these individuals on that of like, this is the board that I'm speaking about. This is kind of their demographic. Give them a little bit of an outline about who this individual is and what we're trying to accomplish. And you say, okay, this is what's going on. Now, I'd like to have a mock conversation of that, and I want you to be a little uh, hard on me. I don't want it to be easy to what we're talking about. So this is what I'm trying to convey. Now, ready, go. And then they, oh, like literally, you can speak to a robot. Again, I'm maybe dyslexic, maybe this, that, and the other thing. Most of my communication, most of all my hours has been verbal. So ChatGPT, I press it, I talk for a little bit, then it goes back and forth. So I've trained these individuals to be able to speak back and forth, get better at, get feedback on how to prepare yourself for these or navigating these difficult conversations. It makes me think of like when you're in if you're trying to become a hairdresser, like you practice on the doll that like has like hair. You don't start like cutting people's hair immediately because it would be terrible and you'd ruin someone's month or whatever, or like tattoo artists or whatever it is. Like being able to train in the emotional side that maybe has been a little lacking based on all the other things, or to even get sharper at it because you don't need to do the other things. Using AI is just a beautiful tool for that.
It can really be a thought partner. And the one thing that you said that's really important is because AI can just be like overly complimentary all the time. You have to challenge it. Please challenge me. What is this person going to question me on that I'm not prepared for?
Mhm,
What are the holes in my argument?
mhm.
This is where you're going to get the most benefit. And guess what? You'd rather have it between you and your AI than in that room at that moment when you don't have the answer.
I consider it just like going to the gym. You got to go to the gym to like get practice.
Yeah.
When I'm leading these presentations with individuals, really on a nutshell, I'm teaching individuals how to prompt. And so I have a background, one of several jobs and industries that I've held thus far in my career was I was in the marijuana industry, and I'm in Denver, Colorado. I like to preface that I am not in doing illegal drug cartel stuff. So anyway, I ran a marijuana grow, and one of my roles was compliance at that organization. And every week we would have a row of plants that we would have to that we'd chop down, we would do a bunch of stuff with, and then eventually it would dry and it would cure, and then eventually I'd sell it. But before we sell it, we had to test it and make sure that it was compliant. And if at any point like a finger touched the plant or the test sample, there's yeast on your finger, or if there's a little bit of hair got in there, that would end up being microbials or whatever. There's so many things that could be wrong if you had the wrong nutrients, whatever. But as a whole, I'm in charge of that. So if for some reason I made a mistake on like this test sample, that'd be $80,000 at least on my head for this marijuana grow, whatever, for this mistake, for this compliance. So I got really good at SOPs, standard operating procedures, and like the simplest version, like how if it's my day off and anybody else does this, how can we make sure that nobody I don't know if I can curse, mess it up. We'll say that. Uh anyway, so I got really good at that. One of them was I think 168 steps that like from tip to tail all the way bada bing bada boom. So as a result of that, I started thinking about ChatGPT and what are the steps that I need to incorporate in this that I could do it every time and just put these exact words in. If you really take the time to prompt and like create a 1 page to 2 page prompt, mamma mia, that can really make a difference for you.
Yeah. This has been such an amazing conversation. So as we kind of wrap up, what excites you most about going back to kind of our housing, but just in general, community focused organizations about where all this work is going and when these leaders who are trying to do some of the most important work for constituents who feel the most vulnerable.
Mhm.
Um, what excites you most about where this work is heading and how AI can, unlock people to do their best work and get better outcomes?
Um, I have a few things show up. So you said last question. I'm gonna get to go a couple different areas. One of them, the community that I run is called Housing Heroes Hub, and so we've broken it down by personal development, professional development, HUD, and then AI basically. So I have the ability to work with. I think we're up to like 700 individuals, and like, next year I'm going to do 112 learning events. I'm just so excited for like a community for people to feel heard, grow in their profession as a result of them getting better and growing and getting training. I mean, there's literally no training to get in this industry. So I get to work with these individuals and create beautiful things and them grow and then take some of that wisdom and then give it off to younger individuals. I just love the idea of people being able to spend the time on really what matters. Like
Mhm.
outside of AI, AI is a solution. It's just a solution. Our software that we do for Conzo software, I really truly believe it's one of the best in the game, and it's a modern one. And recently I was working with an individual, her name was MJ, and she was working 74 hours a week and she wanted to make a difference. And as a result of implementing our software, she went from 74 hours a week to the bare minimum 40. It was really like 35 to 30 that she was able, and she was doing the same amount of thing. Now, why does that even matter? You get a little time back. She was able to take care of her elderly mother. Her mom was sick, but she couldn't really make the difference. She couldn't do what she wanted to do. I'm not in the software business. I'm in the people business. So being able to see people like really be able to live the lives that they want to do and still make a difference is extraordinary to me. And then this is a crazy story. And I don't even know why I'm saying it, but I'll say it anyway. I was at a conference when I first started in this industry, and I was speaking with the executive director. And I'll be honest, I was trying to schmooze them a little bit, and I was trying to like whatever. And then she said, "Hold on one sec, I got to answer this." She answers the phone, and then she goes, "Got it. Okay, hold on one sec." And she says, somebody, there's been a death at the housing authority. I need to or help my staff navigate this. So just I'll talk to you in a bit. And then she like proceeds to just deal with this situation. And it wasn't like even like it was just standard because there's so much going on. So being able to support people that are really here to make a difference and really be able to like, care for this community and support the ones. I'm sure people get into the industry that like some of them are really just more business oriented and then some of them are really more emotional driven, and you got to be able to learn how to do both. I think about my uncles, I think about my family that have again been in public and affordable housing, and that's why I think it was is meaningful, and being able to use AI. And no matter where you're at, if you're young, you're old, you're smart, you're not so smart, whatever it is, I promise you, you can, and it can really make a difference in your life.
So, love the all the things that you kind of brought to the table there. It's maybe more the people who are in it today can get some sanity back and maybe deliver more value
Mhm,
to the people that it matters most because they're more available.
mhm,
There's the opportunity for young people to come and replace those that are aging out
mhm,
because the job is more doable.
mhm,
Recognizing that while AI is ubiquitous in conversation, it's not ubiquitous in fluency for people. And most people are at the very basics of what is it? How do I use it? I so appreciate you spending the time and really educating us on what is happening day to day for vulnerable communities and those who lean in to serve them, including you. So, thank you so much for that. For everyone else, let us know what this brought up for you in this conversation, and if you're inspired to bring your talents into this industry and solving real problems with technology that's making a difference at exactly the right time. So we'll see you on the next episode of Lead the Machine. And thanks again, Dakota.
How fun. Thank you so much.